So when we were down there, and I was kind of took off trousers, this fucking bat flew out at me. Like, what is going on? And I was like, you could have warned me.
What, it came to life?
Yeah, it kind of came in. It flew out of her, literally. It was,
Oh my God.
It's incredible.
Welcome to Crave the Rave, a naughty podcast for old school ravers who need a fix of the rave. I'm Lady Bizarre.
And I'm Jess the Mess. On each episode, we'll be reminiscing over hilarious, embarrassing, and downright mental stories from our raver days.
Think trippy tales, fezzy fails, and stories from the sesh.
We've seen, heard, and done it all. And we bet you have too.
So join us for a trip down memory lane.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Crave the Rave. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have David Hillier. Hello.
Hello.
I'm with Jessie. I'm with David.
Hello.
Hello. And David is a freelance writer and journalist who specialises in drugs, particularly UK drug culture. And if you happen to see us quoted in Mixmag recently, he is the writer of that fantastic article. And he's also been published in The Guardian, Vice, The Telegraph, and Playboy, apparently, which I have questions about. And he's also lucky enough to speak with some of the world's leading drug academics. So I'm sure he's a fountain of knowledge. But he's also spent a good amount of time doing what he calls in the field research.
I'm a professional. What can I say?
Although he is trying to do a little bit less these days, just like us, which is why we thought you'd be a great person to come on the pod and join us. Because, hey, look, we're all kind of in the same boat.
We're all three experts, aren't we, on it?
Exactly. We're the real academics.
I'd say we are the professors of the world when it comes to party life.
Yes, and Jessie's done particularly well at leaving it behind, I would say. She's more of an expert of the doing it less.
You're appalling. I don't think you've even given it a go, have you?
Can I just say, I don't sesh anymore. I actually don't sesh. I just still rave and party and dibble-dabble-do.
But you just told me that you went on a date with a man last night who had a tattoo across his neck that said, "Rave until I die." No, I'm joking. What did it say? It was just as bad.
Rave until I die. No, he would be a keeper. No, he had "It's all in your head" tattooed across his neck.
That is awful.
Red flag.
That is, red flag. Thank you, David.
I liked it.
No.
I know before we started recording, you tried to tell me that was like, what gaslighting?
It couldn't be more of a red flag gaslighting man. He's basically got across his neck what he's going to tell you when he's been cheating on loads of birds, and then he's going to come back and he's going to say, "Where?" They're going to say, "Where have you been?" And he go, "Just read my neck, babes. It's all in your head." What was he thinking? It's all in your head. What made him go to the tattoo shop and ask for that? My only concern is that because he doesn't speak English as his first language, he thought he was getting something like Chinese symbols.
No. He also had on his leg, what was it now? Wherever you are, be all there. He's deep.
That's the sound. Live, laugh, love. That's him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he's the male version of that.
To be fair, I haven't seen the rest of his body. He could have live, laugh, love somewhere.
Oh my God, he could literally have quotes all over his body. Really awful quotes.
The thing is, he doesn't speak English. So, my question was, when I asked him what his one on his leg was, he had to look at it to remember. And he was saying, "Whatever you are, be there." And I was like, "What do you mean, whatever you are?" And I was trying to understand. And then he looked at his leg, and then we stopped, and I looked at his leg, and I was like, "Oh, it's wherever you are."
Deep. That is deep. Fucking hell, that is actually a massive red flag. Did you turn around and run away, or did you carry on with the date?
No, it was actually, we were leaving. It was the end of the day that I got a little glimpse at his
Leg.
I was gonna say his bits, but not his bits, his tattoos. Just a little glimpse. And no, I want to give him another go. He was really sweet.
Oh.
Ooh. Why doesn't he get tattoos done in his own language?
Yeah, good question. He likes pulling the English birds.
I honestly think you've got this guy all wrong.
No, I think you have. You have. He's from where? Argentina. And he's got an English tattoo and it's a fucking shit quote saying it's all in your head.
I like it. Anyway, whatever. I don't think it's a red flag.
I was at Meadows in the Mountains like maybe 10 years ago, and there was a bloke there who had a massive cock tattooed on his inner thigh.
No.
And it was like a really like veiny contraption. It was massive. It had massive nads. I remember that. And like I was just like, this is the worst thing in humanity. And then when it turned, basically, I said to him like, "Why have you got this?" And he said he had to get it done because he lost a bet.
No.
And I was just like, "Yeah, he lost a bet." Yeah, and I was like, "What sort of person is it that kind of keeps that bet?"
What sort of bet was it?
And also, what was he going to win? What was he going to win?
What was the bet? Okay, let's think about this. What sort of bet would make you get a tattoo of that nature? Like, what earth could make you... I think if I had a bet with like some, maybe the Mexican cartel, and I lost, and I either lost my life or I had a massive big penis tattooed onto my bare leg, that's probably the only situation it was there where I'd have that done, because that is shocking.
I had very little kind of. I actually like had really little respect for him.
Yeah.
It wasn't like one of those things where you're like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," or "That's kind of a cool story," and nice one, mate. I was a bit like, I don't think I want to hang out with you.
Yeah, loser. And at Meadows in the Mountains as well. It's such a beautiful, lovely festival. And like, no judgment on him really as his personality. I don't think he should be judged on that. But at the same time, like, if you're walking around Meadows in the Mountains, everyone's gorgeous, like he's hot, like I see why he would have his legs out. To see that's quite a shock, no?
Yeah. Honestly, it was like he was wearing like quite little shorts, but it was kind of like not far off going to his knees. It was massive. It must have been so painful to do.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a wonderful thing. I mean, it was an impressive penis, don't get me wrong, but like, you know.
That must have been life or death. Like, come on.
Do you think there's any girls out there that would say, I fucking rate that, I love that, get out your real penis?
I want a bit.
Yeah,
but I hope. I mean, his dick is going to look so small in
Tiny!
comparison. Because how do you stand up against that?
Yeah. Oh my God.
You lot were talking about micro penises on the last pod, weren't you? So maybe he's got a micro penis.
Oh my God, he's got a micro penis.
penis.
What's the word? Like a micro penis complex that he decided to just own.
It wasn't a bet. He just drew that. He got that put tattooed on himself to make up for his micro penis. Hats off to him, I say.
That has just reminded me, oh my God, when I was at Shambhala, I met the guy from Naked Attraction that had the big elephant tattooed around his dick. Do you remember that guy?
I've never really watched Naked Attraction properly.
No.
Oh my God. Okay, for anyone who just by chance hasn't seen this series, this was a actual television series that was on like Channel 4 in the UK, where people came on TV completely naked, but it was a game show where you revealed each part by part. So the last thing you'd see was someone's head. So you're choosing, it's like a dating show on TV, choosing who you want to go on a date with based on their genitals, based on their boobs or like their top half, and then finally you get to see their face, right? So like such a crazy concept, but the part that I think they reveal like the knee downwards first or something, then you get to the, you know, the bits. But the bits of this one guy was obviously you see everything, the cock, flaccid penis, and a giant elephant with big, huge elephant ears around the cock. Anyway, I fucking recognized him at Shambhala when I was off my nut from his face, because he had like, I think he had like dreads or something. He looked like Johnny Depp. Like, no, he did not look like Johnny Depp. He looked like, what's his character in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Captain Sparrow or whatever, Jack Sparrow.
He had a Captain Jack Sparrow vibe about him. And so I kind of recognized his face, and he got it out and showed me, and sorry to expose you, mate, but at the end of the day, you've already been on TV and exposed yourself, so it's too late for that. But he was so fucked on K, he was wobbling all over the place. He got his elephant out and showed me, and I was like, yep, that's you. Yeah. And I knew a girl at uni, a friend of a girl that I went to uni with, and I saw it with my own very eyes, but it said, all you can eat for a $5 tattooed right above her minge.
What was she thinking? Did you
Yeah.
have to pay a $5?
Was that a bet? Was that a bet?
No, she chose it. I don't know why she chose it. What did you say, Jessie?
I said, and did you pay a $5?
What do you fucking think of me?
I think you'd pay a $5 and you'd go into the all-you-can-eat buffet, my friend.
I mean, do you think that these people were like fucked when they got these tattoos done? Because that's what I'm now thinking. Like maybe they were off their nuts and it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I hope so.
Is that ghost coming in?
I just saw the door open.
Yeah, no, my cat just walked in.
Oh, right. It's quite weird. Like, ooh.
I hope the cat's there.
But for the recording, we all just froze really awkwardly because the door on its own just opened in David's house, and we all thought there was a Crave the Rave ghost, but no.
It was so slowly. The way it opens was like, ooh. I don't know. I mean, if you're a tattoo artist and you do a tattoo on someone that is that fucked, particularly if it was a massive big penis down to your knee or an elephant around your cock, I don't think that you're a nice human being if you were able to do that on someone that's fucked. So I'd like to think that they were sober, and one lost a bet. So we don't know what that bit is, and I really wish we did. So I'm going to say that he was sober. And I think, by the way that you've described Elephant Man, he probably was sober as well. Like, yeah, I reckon he's just gone for it.
He's just gone for it. Oh. All right, well, look, back to David, because that's, what we're here for. You got any weird tattoos on your cock?
I haven't, but I have actually got quite a good tattoo story. Basically, my girlfriend and I, on our first date, we took mushrooms. And
Cute.
And then we went to have sex, and she didn't tell me at the time that she's got like a bat tattooed like on her abdomen. So when we were down there, and I was kind of took off at trousers, this fucking bat flew out at me. Like, what is going on? And I was like, you could have warned me.
Well, it came to life.
Yeah, it kind of came. Yeah, it flew out of her. Literally, it was.
Oh my god!
It's incredible.
I reckon that was exactly what she wanted when she went in there and said, "I'll have a bat tattooed there." She just had to find the right man to take the mushrooms with her on a first date.
Exactly, the right sado. Yeah.
Wait, why are you sado?
Well, not sado, but or maybe the right scumbag. Probably a better phrase. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that brings me on to something. So when we first invited you onto the pod, you said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to come on, but like I'm not like much of a raver. I'm more of a like professional scumbag." So what is a professional scumbag? Like I want to know more about that.
Well, I mean, I'm lucky in that I've kind of managed to make sort of something of a career out of writing about drugs, and then as part of that kind of career, I've had to sort of take quite a lot of drugs. So I guess I am professional in that way, and I think I meant it just in the sense that like I don't like I've been raving a lot, but I don't. I'm always more about the kind of experience rather than the music. Like I'd go to lots of gigs and lots of festivals, but I was sort of more of a kind of, I guess, like pub than home sort of guy, mostly. At least sort of like latterly, and I've spent a lot. Like I was so for about like 10 years, I wrote about festivals. So I went to a lot of festivals, and I spent a lot of time being a professional scumbag there, which was a lot of fun. And then after that, I just got maybe a bit like you guys. I got a bit old for going to too many festivals because I used to go to them all the time. I did this article once where I went to 5 in a month, and I tested comedown cures.
Oh wow!
I think we did similar, Lara. I think we did 5 in about 2 months at one point.
Yeah, we used to hit them
It's
hard.
too much.
Yeah, we also were the first people to get there, and we were the last people to leave.
Yeah.
We'd literally be like, we could drive our cars up to the campsite because there'd be no fencing around the outskirts by the time that we left. Do you remember, Lara?
It was just us and a sea of debris, like, left.
Yeah.
And like,
And then we would be like the first people there to the next site. I think we'd go home, wash our clothes, have a sleep, and then go on to the next one. Full on.
It sounds like you're professional scumbags too.
yeah.
Yeah, we used to call ourselves wreckheads,
Yeah,
actually.
all records. Yeah.
We were professional
Yeah.
wreckheads. I'll be interested to know, what's your favourite, I mean, it's hard to say, but what festival do you think is the best?
Yeah, that is a difficult question to answer. I think that it's so often based upon like who you're with, like
Yeah.
even things like the weather. I think that like the ones that I always think about of like having the most memorable experience was like it's an obvious one, but it's Glastonbury. But then I also went to Nowhere, which is like the European Burning Man. That was in
Oh,
like the kind of desert in Spain.
wow.
And as a kind of like life experience, like I definitely don't want to go again. Like I once was enough.
Okay.
But it was like that was an incredible experience and kind of like going to a different planet where
Wow.
there's just different rules. And to be honest, some of it I found a bit like everyone there was from Hackney, which is fine because I used to live in Hackney. But like it was like there were bits of it I found like a bit performative and a little bit like almost kind of like douchey. And I didn't really. I think there's a lot of people there that were just to like have sex with strangers and take acid in the desert, which is fine. We all want to do that. But they kind of do it under the banner of kind of this radical self-expression or whatever.
Right. Okay. Like fake hippies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fippies.
Hackney hippies, the
Yeah,
non-hippies.
and then I also those ones in terms of like life experiences, and then I like for instance, there's this one I always think of. We went to this one called Forgotten Fields. It only went on for 1 year, and like the lineup was like really basic. It wasn't like that good. It was quite small, and it was like in somewhere in Sussex. But we just had like a really good crew, and for some reason it was this magical like 3 days, and we like bumped into these people, and we ended up just having a really good source for these really good pills, and like everything just like was magic. And I always look back on that as one of my favorite ones, even though like in terms of like a cultural experience, there was nothing going on at all. But then I also do think about that. I think, the worst come down experience of my life. And it was about like 4 days later.
Oh.
And like, you know, by then you should be starting to come out of it, really. You should be. But like, we had one of those ones where it was like, we just had pills as well. So we just took loads and loads of them. And I had a dream where I like was flying on a magic carpet, and then I like met my soul, basically, and my soul
Okay.
told me I was a bad person.
Oh.
Right. So I like, you know, when you like judder out of a dream when you're kind of in those kind of zappy dreams or whatever. So I came out of that, and I completely fucking freaked out. And I'd been freaking out already because my brain had been zapping for 4 days straight. And basically, my neighbour is a minister. He's a Baptist minister. He's absolutely lovely. He lives with his family. They absolutely. And I was so like sort of scared by this thing that I got up, and it was like in the middle of the night to go down to go to like knock on his door. I got like halfway down my stairs, and then like caught myself together. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't go and knock on this guy's door and say, I'm having these horrible kind of post-drugs dreams, like save my soul, save me. So I went
Oh my
nuts.
God, what would he have done if you actually got to his door and then the words came out of your mouth? Oh my God.
Yeah, he's a lovely bloke, and like he probably would have like sat me down, had a cup of tea, and talked to me about it, and said I was a good person. Is that sort of person? But yeah.
That could have been a turning point. Maybe now you would be a minister and not writing about drugs.
Exactly. Yeah, I would have seen the light.
You know, it's so weird that you're sharing that, because we just literally recorded an episode on what goes up must come down, and talking about our worst come downs. And we haven't released it yet, so you won't have heard it, but we just recorded that episode, and I talk about my worst come down, which was 5 days. So
Yeah,
right
it's
there
grim.
with you. I didn't go to the local church though.
No. Next time.
No.
5 days is a lot, isn't it? By then you're like, I think normally like now I sort of think if I have a really, really heavy weekend, which I don't that often for the record, like I sort of think that generally by Wednesday afternoon is the time when you're like, you start, you like emerge from it like a phoenix. Because like the Monday is just, you're just a bit, you're just sort of getting through it and you're in a bit of a, and actually I quite often am like, Monday, I feel good.
I'm still high.
Yeah,
Like, I still feel it in the system.
Still high, still on the vibes. Yeah.
Monday's fine. Monday is like your guy with the tattoo because it gaslights you because you're like, I feel all right actually. I was waiting for this, but I'm all right.
And then it's Tuesday, isn't it? Though it's Tuesday. You get up on Tuesday and you're like, fucking hell. And then you're just like, is this what my life is? And then you wake up on Wednesday and you quite often have like a weird sleep.
Wednesday sort of is a bit more of like a, not so much a mental. The mental's died down a little bit, but the body is suffering still.
I feel like it's like it's like a pressure on the head. It's like I've like fried the brain cells, and the brain is trying to kind of undiscombobulate itself. Of like, okay, we need to like remember what it feels like to be human again. Is kind of my experience.
Yeah. And so, do you get on it ever now?
Like sometimes, yeah. Like it goes in phases. It goes in phases. Like I've had periods of my life where I've definitely done too much, and then now like me and my girlfriend have been making a kind of conscious attempt to like pick our moments, pick our nights, do less like the random kind of have a few pints and then kind of get a bag and stuff like that. I'm kind of there's a time and a place for that, but I'm sort of over that in general.
Totally.
Fucks up weeks and like I just don't really need that in my life particularly anymore. But like, I mean, I've been sober for January, and like a lot of last year we've been toning it down, but then I had a couple of really big nights in the start of December where it was just like, one was a birthday and one was I had 2 sets of friends Christmas things, and then they were 2 kind of roll throughs and 2 weekends in a row, and I was like, that's too much, I'm too old for that.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, well done, but yeah.
It was a bit like, and I had a really good time, and I saw loads of people, and I laughed a lot. Like I laughed a lot.
That's what I miss. And I've got certain friends that are like triggers for me. Lara, if she's in town, she's a trigger. My friend Val, who lives away as well. Like I've got certain mates that if I'm with, the excitement to see them and the excitement to be around them and laugh my head off around them, like it's just too tempting, you know. And then we're the same, but me and Ashley, we will plan it once every blue moon. I mean, very blue moon now, really, if we go Glastonbury and that's it. But other than that, we can't. We've got a kid and we just can't do it. But like, it's just mad how it was such a big part of our lives now to go down to like hardly anything. I don't think I'll ever be in one of them situations where we just have a few drinks and we call it in. I just can't see myself ever saying yes to that ever again.
How old's your child?
3.
Right, because that and especially that kind of like opportunity just wouldn't present itself, would it? Because your life is kind of dictated and planned.
Maybe a work do if I went out with work and they called in, which they would. I've just started this new job and I'm gauging them and I'm like, yeah, they definitely would. But then even then, I think I'd still think, well, I've got to go home and my daughter will probably get into my bed tonight and I've got to be around tomorrow to look after her. Is that worth it to sit with work people, to get on it? No. So I actually can't. A wedding's quite a good example of probably me being like, no, I won't, and then I will, because I can imagine after a few drinks I'll get carried away. But other than that, I can't see it happening.
Well, you were the only one that went home on my birthday last year.
Yeah.
You left your sister and your hubby to
and all our best mates
carry on with me, and you were like, I've got to go.
I was actually like such a normal person. It was Lara's birthday. It was typical. It was like what my perfect night would be, but like 10 years ago, right? Or maybe even 5 years ago. But like all sitting out on our friend's roof terrace. Them lot call it in. We've got drinks, we've got music, we've got good company. But I just couldn't stop eating, and I just kept eating all the food. I was like dreaming of a kebab on the way home, and I thought, I'm not going to get on it. Like, I'm going to be a normal person. And the smugness I had the next day, the pure smug, when like my husband, my sister, my best mates are all dying, and I'm there. Oh, would anyone like a sandwich? Like, I couldn't be more smug about myself. But also, it like, It just, my brain has flipped completely. Maybe it's being a mum, but like my brain's flipped. So like, whilst I actually really was having a good time with my friends in that time, and I didn't feel like I was missing out by not getting on it. I was still laughing. I was still having a good time. I just wasn't fighting for airtime to talk like everybody else was. But the only downside is, as the only sober person, everyone's trying to direct themselves at me, aren't they? Because I'm the only one that's not saying anything as much as everybody else, and they're all shouting over each other. But I'm used to that, and I love that, and I love my mates for that. But yeah, that is the only thing. Sometimes if you're the sober one in a group of fuck people, it's not as fun. But overall, I had a really good time, and I was pretty sober.
All right. Well, nice. Yeah, I felt all right the next day. To be honest, I didn't go too crazy.
Yeah, but you don't get the come downs like most people, Lara.
No, I guess
lucky.
not.
Do you have a positive mental attitude? Because you seem like quite a positive person
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, I don't really get bad come downs. No.
Yeah, but
no.
I'm positive, and I still get an awful come down. Do you feel like any of your partying days and like your record days have had an impact on you now, David? Do you think that there's any sort of like leftover things from that you're still feeling?
Do you mean in terms of like mental or physical health, or in terms of like or effect on my life?
Yeah, all of it really. Like, I know like some people might feel like they maybe could have been a bit further in their, I don't know, their life journey, because if they weren't partying. I mean, your article, like, sort of, it was so good, your article, because it literally, it does sum up what I think we're all feeling. You're so right in this. There's a massive culture, the massive era of all of us millennials where we partied and partied and partied, and then we're now not. And has that caught up with us? Like, do you feel like that's caught up with you at all?
I feel like it's quite hard for me to explain. I'm in like a relatively unique position in that I've managed to sort of turn my partying lifestyle into my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm quite almost like not completely objective, which is a strange place to be. So for me, I have this kind of secondary thing where I don't have the regrets in the way that some people do, because it's kind of pushed me towards what I've done, and I've become like I mean, I write about lots of other things as well, and I don't just write about drugs, but that's the thing that I'm most known for, and I guess that I'm sort of passionate about, because I'm really passionate about one of the effects of drugs on people, and the fact that people don't know enough about them, but also the kind of drugs war and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think that probably I think about this quite a lot, actually. I think overall I don't regret my days of sesh. I think they like, and I really
Yeah.
one of the reasons I really love chatting to you, and I was really glad we got you in the article, was when you talked about it, Laura. You were like, the sesh has a massive taboo, but actually that you were saying that you guys have met so many interesting people, and it's really shaped who you are,
1,000,000%.
which I
Totally.
think is a really nice way of putting it. Because I think the kind of like narrative around drug use, especially stuff like cocaine, and I guess like pills as well, and drinking, is that it's just the negative sides of it. But I think there are positive sides of people like finding their kind of tribe and finding spaces for them to, disentangle themselves from the pressures of modern life and all stuff like that. I think that people just need the information to not do it too often.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes think that it's probably I'm quite a healthy guy. And I think it's odd that I'm like, in all aspects of my life, I'm pretty health conscious. But once I have like 4 pints, that all goes out the window. Or 4 or 5. But I think it's kind of, I'm generally okay with the effect that it's had on my life. And there have been periods where, like, especially like, it's affected my mental health, and I've had to kind of, make a big effort to kind of stop that part of my life. And those are the times when when you regret and you think this doesn't need to happen. But those tend to be after the pointless nights. They're always the things where I get like the major regrets. It generally tends to be after the pointless nights where I've ended up cancelling on someone or changing plans that I've made and shit like that. Like, there's the things that really, really, really grate on me. What doesn't grate on me is when I've gone out and we've planned a night out or a party or whatever, and it gets a bit wild or what have you. And I like that because those moments that I have with people, then I'm a bit of a kind of like bit of an introvert, really, and it surprises people because when I see them out, I'm like really loud and often like being quite silly. But the rest of the time, I'm sort of quite often not really like that, and I quite like having that space to go and my girlfriend's nickname for me is David Hillier. And she says that when you take loads of drugs and you get to like a certain point of the morning, she goes, you just become this different person as David Hillier. And I really like David Hillier, but I'm too kind of, I guess, I'm too shy, and I'm too like thoughtful about, I don't know, I'm always thinking about what other people think of me and stuff like that. So this is one of the reasons I actually really like cocaine. I know people always talk about how it's like kind of de rigueur for people who've taken lots of coke to say they don't like coke, but I actually really like it because it kind of like gives me like just a little bit of confidence to be that kind of silly person that I quite like to connect with from time to time.
It lowers the inhibition.
I know a lot of people like that. I mean, my husband, we call him Smashly when he's in that state, and he loves himself in that state, and that would be his drug of choice because it does exactly that to him. And I think that's why a lot of men in particular like coke, because I think where women are, I'd say they're more outgoing in a social situation most of the time to men, and then I think all it takes is a line, and I feel like it changes a whole man's and women's, but men's personalities, so that they can be this free character that I think a lot of the time they're not. And I do think that's why a lot of men love it. In my life, anyway, that's what I've realised more than women so much.
That's actually interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I mean the kind of the usage by men of like all substances is higher, but I do think there's something in that, because I think that kind of men do find themselves constrained a lot of time, and generally they don't have that kind of sense of natural communities, I think, that women have, and so that kind of like, I definitely have this sense of like when I'm going out and I know it's a big night, I'm like, I don't have not so much like, I have a bit of a deep and meaningful, but I just want to talk shit. I just want to talk shit, and it's like, and then say all the things that are in my brain like all the time, but I often feel too self-conscious to let out.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. Do you know what? That's what I miss. I miss that absolute talking shit that is funny, gobbledygook, really. Doesn't really fully make sense. Well, it does make sense, but it's hilarious. I miss that a lot.
Yeah, well, we do a fair bit of that on the pod.
Well, that's why we got the pod.
That's why we got the pod.
That's literally why we got the pod. Some of the afters that we had would be
God.
like just the jokest things in the world. You know what it's like, because would you all be wearing a random piece of fancy dress, dancing around to Michael Jackson in the living room, singing at the top of your lungs at 10:30 in the morning with somebody else with, like, I don't know, something drawn on their face and something else? Would that happen if you didn't have the drugs about? No. You know, would that be happening? Would you be doing all the random shit that comes to your head and everyone does in the morning? No, you wouldn't be.
No, it is so fun. You know what? Actually, something I loved in the article that I didn't know and that I learned was that the word sesh came from that Facebook group. What was it called? Humans of the Sesh. Back in 2015. That was really interesting. I never thought about like where the word came from.
We actually discussed on a really early episode about how for a long time there actually wasn't a word for the sesh. So we were trying to find words that would write for it, but it was really hard to find a word that summarised that part of the night.
Well, that's how we ended up with smashcotch. Smashcotch.
Yeah.
Smashcotch was the word, the name that we gave it.
We just didn't know what to call it.
Yeah, but David, are you familiar with the word cotch?
Yeah.
Yeah, to cotch is to like chill, and obviously be smashed. Cotchin, smash.
It doesn't
smash,
quite
cotch.
roll off the tongue. I'm not
No,
having
it
a go at
doesn't.
it.
It
Like,
didn't stick.
You do you. But
No, you're right. It did not stick. People didn't want to come round and smash cotch. But when you said, do you want to come back to ours? They went, yeah, all right. And we said, do you want to come back and smash cotch? No, they did not.
That is not true. It was an inner joke.
yeah,
But
well, the interesting thing about that, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, that actually started off from, there was a group called Humans of New York, and I'm pretty sure, and that was just pictures and like memes of people of like New York living, basically. And then these guys, the two lads, they're called like Brown Sauce and Grand Fiend, I think. But they're from Ireland, and they started off this thing, Humans of the Sesh. And it just like caught on really quickly, really, really quickly. But then, like, as you know now, there's kind of probably like 50 Instagram accounts with like sesh in the title, so all doing the kind of same sort of memes.
Yeah.
And I actually, weirdly, I think I kind of feel maybe I'm a bit old for it now, but I sort of look at some of that humour now, and I sort of think it's a little bit douchey. Not to like be down on the people that do it, which is why one of the reasons I really liked you guys was because like you kind of make the sesh sound like fun, I think, and also not just like lads sitting around smoking, like, or standing around in a smoky kitchen kind of shouting at each other about women, basically. So I do think that some of that is some stuff, but it could also just be that I'm showing my age.
I actually think that the sesh is more of a Gen Z thing, and I think the sesh has evolved from what it was for us. Like, could you imagine how good it would have been to do all those seshes knowing that we could have got booze and everything delivered from Deliveroo?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Insane.
Even Ubers were quite a new thing, really, by the end of the seshing time. You know, like to get in an Uber and get home in record time. Like there were days when we had to get the night bus, you know, or you get an illegal minicab outside the club, and you'd have an A to Z. I mean, I'm really going back, but I actually remember like having A to Z, so trying to find a random party at the end of the thing, and whoever had to sit in the front had to put the A to Z with the driver, you know. But like, there's so many things now. Don't you remember that? Like like some random road.
I don't remember having the A to Z on a sesh.
Well, mate, when we started partying, there was no fucking sat nav and there was no phones for it. And so I think that the sesh has evolved, and I think the sesh for millennials is a different sesh to what we are used to.
Funnily enough, for about the last 18 months, I've been working on a book about kind of 21st century drug culture. And when it was being pitched to publishers, they all said that they hated the word sesh.
Yeah.
They kicked against it, and I was like, no, it's a kind of like a British cultural thing. But they all of them were like, we don't like that word. And
I get it.
No,
I get it. It doesn't sit well with me. And like
it's a bit scummy, yeah.
I just think it's not right. But then, like, I think because we've referred to ourselves a couple of times as sesh heads, just because people do know what that means. But I still think we were wreckheads over sesh heads.
that's why I like
You know?
scumbag. That's like
Scumbag, you're a scumbag. We're having a smash scotch.
But scumbag sounds like you're, you know, getting on it and then going out and robbing old grannies. That's what makes me think of scumbag. I'm curious to know, David, for you, like, do you remember what your first kind of sesh scumbag experience was?
I actually started off taking sort of class A drugs, like I think quite late, and I started doing them at uni. But like I started like drinking in like parks and quarries when I was kind of like 14.
Quarries?
Yeah, there was a quarry but like near my parents' house. So I'd start like drinking like cider and that when I was kind of like maybe like 14, 15.
Uh-huh.
And actually, again, this is one of those things of the gift and the curse of all that stuff was like I like really struggled at school, at secondary school, and couldn't really find, I guess, like a tribe, you might say. And then when I started getting drunk, I realized that people like laughed at my jokes, and I was kind of became a slightly different person. And I got into like really into like going out and getting pissed, because I was like, if I go out and do that, like I can make friends and also I can meet girls. Jesse, when you said earlier on like about the ongoing effect of the sesh or whatever, I do think there's a bit of my brain that is like, I'm funnier when I'm pissed. To a degree, I actually think I've like never lost that. So whether or not that's a good or a bad thing is kind of, you can ask my therapist.
Well, you bagged your girlfriend on drugs, so it must work.
Yeah. But in terms of first sesh, like then I took a first pill when I was in my first year at uni. I was probably like 20, 21. But even then, I wasn't really like, we just drank absolute shitloads, and I smoked a lot of weed back then. I haven't smoked weed really for like 15 years, but I smoked a lot then. But then in terms of like that kind of quote unquote like sesh behavior, that was probably when I got to like early to mid 20s. I moved out of uni and I lived in this house in Clapham, which had a rat. And that was like where I got into those kind of like, I guess like longer parties, a bit more like poly drug use, mixing things up, and the things that like would go on for longer. And I couldn't stand the heat for quite a long time. I was like, get to maybe like 6-ish, and I'd be like, I've got to call this, like I can't do this. And then through like practice, quite a lot of practice, I learned how to like stay the course. So yeah, and then like I lived in London and everyone was on it in London. It was just, there was no sense of people like looking after their health or anything like that. It was just like, especially at the weekends, like Thursday to Sunday. And I grew up in this time like you guys, where alcohol was just totally normalized, and like the end of the kind of the noughties, where cocaine use was through the roof, and it was like at record points. So I just got used to like that lifestyle of kind of Thursday, Friday, depending on depending what happened Friday, maybe Saturday. And then I moved to Brighton, like I kind of, for a bunch of reasons. I was kind of like, oh, maybe if I move to Brighton, it will stop. And it turns out there's loads of drug dealers in Brighton.
Oh, Brighton is.
Everyone's a scumbag here. Everyone's a scumbag.
Oh my God.
Brighton.
That is the last place.
That wasn't a very bright idea.
No, it really wasn't. I didn't think ahead.
That's the last place to go if you're trying to get off it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So many big house parties down there. Brighton in the south of England. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So from all those times, right? Because it sounds like you've had some amazing times, and I love what you shared about it, kind of giving you the confidence. Because I think so many people can relate to that. It makes you more funny. It makes you more relaxed. You know, a lot of people deal with anxiety, and just to be able to exhale and be like, I can take the mask off and just say whatever I want, do whatever I want, and just be kind of free of having to perform in normal life, which is how a lot of people, I think, feel. That is fun and freeing. And I'm curious, from that time, like, are there any specific times that really stood out to you? Or like, was there a specific, like, I don't know, I guess messy moment or hilarious like moment or night specifically that really still stands out to you and you're like, fuck, like that, I'll never forget that?
And in terms of like messy, I do have one like literally messy moment from when I was 15. And basically me and my friends were doing this thing called Team 2000. And so there was like 100 of us. Oh, sorry, no, there's 20 of us, and we all got together to drink 100 units each in 3 weeks between a certain date in December and the millennium. So it was up to millennium, so Team 2000. And bear in mind, I was 15, and I'd been out like a bit, but I hadn't like been out, but I'd kind of like, as I said, drinking in parks and quarries. And I'd probably like been to a couple of pubs or whatever. Anyway, I got to the point where I was like sitting at home, like drinking like a few Stellas at night by myself in my room. I remember my dad came in once. He was like, "What the hell are you doing? There's like 4 Stellas in your bin." It's just like, you're too young for this. Anyway, and then, but basically we got to the last night. So we got millennium, so 31st. And we were in this like, it was like a rec centre or something, or maybe a school. And there was a party then. I was with a couple of my mates, and I had to drink like 20 units, way too much for a 15-year-old kid without any, way too much for anyone really. And I basically was like caning it all night, and then got to 99, and then my tolerance went, or my liver went, or whatever, and I just started like vomiting. So I was vomiting loads and loads and loads and loads. It was like really embarrassing. Like I missed millennium. And there was like people that were just coming in to kind of like,
oh no,
people would like come in and look at me and be like, I'm not looking after him, see you later. And then I remember like leaving there, and I remember just being like all over, you know when you see kids who are just like all over the shop, I was like all over the shop. And then we went back to my friend's house, and he put me, because I'd like vommed all down my jeans. I don't know if this is like TMI for your listeners.
No, you're fine, we're gross.
So yeah, I had his shorts on and then was sleeping in a sleeping bag, and basically, to cut a long story short, I like shit myself in his sleeping bag. And it was honestly like the most, like if it happened now, I would like, I think I'd like, if it happened like right now, I'd probably be a bit like, you need to grow up. But if there's like a period where I would have found that quite funny, but as a 15-year-old, I was absolutely horrified. And they were all,
That's horrific.
yeah, it was horrific. And I was just like, you can't tell anyone. And I remember they were all sort of sat around kind of making sort of little jokes. They were, one of them, his little brother walked in and went, of course, smells like shit in here. And I was just like absolutely like mortified. And I remember like being in the bathroom of his house, like cleaning myself up, for want of a better phrase, not to give too much information. And to this day, they had like a kind of like, you know, the things like you, like a blue thing that you put in the toilet to make it like smell nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They had one in that, and to this day, if I smell that particular one, it like I've got like PTSD of it. It like makes me want to vom, and like takes me right back there. I have to like avoid any toilet that has that particular thing in.
Oh my God, yeah.
To be fair, I've had quite a lot of like mileage out of it. It was horrifying for a bit, but I wrote an article for the Observer about booze. It was called about like peak booze and basically how people in our generation drink too much. And actually, it was like the first time I'd been on the cover, and like,
oh cool.
the article opens with that story. My dad called me up. He was like, good story, mate, and that was it. Like, normally he's very effusive with his praise, and he was a bit like, you've kind of like maybe gone a bit too far. But there we go.
I'm so proud of you, son.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
shitting yourself and then telling the entire nation. Brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so David, we've now got some pop questions for you that we're just going to ask you before we finish the pod today.
Why are you saying pop questions? Is that even a thing? Pop questions.
Pop questions, quick questions. Are they not called pop questions?
I don't know. Like
Pop question.
I know, like pop the question, but you're not going to pop the question to David, are you?
Hopefully.
I thought if you were to like fire off quick questions, they're called pop questions. Or have I made that up? Well, let's call. I know when we ask guests questions, let's call them pop questions.
All right, pop question. David, have you heard that being called pop questions?
I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I have, but it works.
Oh.
All right.
Here we go. It's pop question time.
Okay. Do you want to go with the first question, Jess?
Yeah, so I want to ask you, have you got a memorable person that you've met on a night out, whatever situation, wherever you are, that has always stuck out in your mind?
That guy with the cock tattoo. At Millers in the Mountains.
Of course. How could it be anyone other than him?
Possible to forget.
Yeah.
All right, David, have you heard of any raving myths? So we featured on the pod a few different ones. Pooh Girl, who dropped her whole handbag in the Portaloo at a festival and then got her body stuck inside it and had to get removed. Urinal Man, who waits in Berghain and pisses on you. Snorkel Man, who snorkels underneath the Portaloos in Glastonbury and looks at your minge or your balls or your knobhead, I guess. Or, you know, what I learned in school, which was if you take ecstasy, your head will explode. Any of those ring a bell, or any others yourself?
Isn't there a story in like Berghain that in like the room at the bottom they have like a chute where they let a pig out and they all chase the pig around
A pig?
and like they're all naked or whatever and then they let a pig go. Yeah, I've heard that one.
Wait, do you think?
I hope it's true.
No, not for the pig.
Well, actually, no. I hope it's not true. I'm an animal. Yeah, no.
I'm an animal. Did you just say I'm an animal?
I'm an animal lover. I'm
Oh,
an animal lover, but like from a comedy level, that kind of appeals to me, but not from a kind of like that pig's happiness level.
Yeah, you sort of hope it'll be true, but you really hope it's not true.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I hear you.
okay.
Okay, my question. What was your first email address?
Oh, this is so embarrassing. Like, I almost don't want to say this in like a public space.
Mate, honestly, this is the thing. This is why we ask, because we know.
This is absolutely horrendous.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, it's just like really sad, and it's like a teenage boy. Because I think I was probably like 13, 14, 15. And basically,
Yeah, we all were. That's the
why.
thing.
Yeah, I guess that's why.
Yeah.
And because back then everyone was awful. But basically, there was. You remember Austin Powers, the film?
Yes.
There's a scene in it where Dr. Evil is like bouncing a basketball, but he's throwing it at someone saying, "Are you going to wear?" I'm not going to do the accent, but he's saying, "Are you like? Do you want to wear the daddy pants? Do you want to wear the daddy pants?" And he goes, "You gonna cry? You gonna cry?" And then for some reason, I just the one time I was setting up my like first Hotmail, I put it as "You gonna cry? You gonna cry?" at hotmail.com. So that lived on until about my kind of like my mid-20s, maybe. But for like those last few years, I sort of kept it going because I thought it was funny. But I remember going to a job fair once when I was like at uni, and the lady was like, "What is this?" She's like, She's like, come back tomorrow. Get yourself a proper email address, and then we'll chat.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Are you gonna cry?
Yeah.
So just for the record, Lara Buyakasha and Come Closer, and I was Cheeky Cheek. So we were horny little 14-year-olds who also applied for jobs with it. So we talk about that on an earlier
I would have much
episode.
rather hung out with you guys than me, clearly, at that age.
I don't know.
Mine was Gangster Gal LF as well. Gangster Gal LF. So yeah, like don't know if you would want to hang out with me because I was pretty gangster.
Gangster girl that went to private school.
Gangster Gal went to private school. Yeah. Cringe. Okay, moving on. So, how old is too old for raving and having it up, David?
That is a really good question. I think there are some times when you're out and you see people and you think you should be in bed. Come on, and especially when they're like really, really twisted. But then I do also
Yeah.
think that people who are out enjoying their lives, people should get. And you don't know what's going on, behind the scenes. Maybe they go out once a year and whatever, and it's like their
Yeah.
release or whatever. So I don't think there is like necessarily like a too odd. I do think there's possibly like a too fucked.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a point with that, and you're a bit like, oh, you should be looking after yourself. More like out of like your heart is gonna go, like if you're doing this.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think generally people should be kind of like allowed to like do what they want as long as they're kind of not hurting themselves. But that, I mean, I don't know if this is quite boring, but the problem we've got at the moment is like, so like drugs, and especially in the UK, but all over, especially in the UK, are really, really strong. So for older people that have been taking drugs a long time, like going out and maybe getting a gram when you haven't done it for maybe like 6 months or a year or something like that, and then getting a pill is actually potentially quite dangerous, because you're not used to the strength of it, and your tolerance is low, so then you can your sort of heart can go.
So this leads on quite nicely to my next and probably our final question, which is just like, we tried to give out wisdom tips at the beginning of our series. Do you have any like sort of wisdom tips or points that you'd like to say to people about being safe, maybe taking things?
The thing that I wish I'd known when I was like younger is like hydrate. Like this is the one thing. It's so obvious. I don't know whether this is something everyone
I
says,
didn't.
but I just didn't even think about it. But it's
No.
such like an important part of recovery, and like you feel so much better. Like I'm quite like boring about it now. Like I'm like my girlfriend like laughs at me like
Same.
when I'm at a party or whatever. Like if it's at my house or our house, sorry, I have like loads of hydration tablets, and it gets to a point where I'll go around and like make sure
Same.
everyone like has one.
Same.
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm just so on it now.
She
Like I
doesn't.
can't let.
She doesn't have seshes at her house.
I don't have
She's just
sessions at
talking
my
in
house.
normal. She's just talking
No.
about normal Wednesdays.
No, what I mean is like, for example, like Glastonbury, like I will make sure that people around me are drinking water, have water with them, and will take all the sachets and all the baroccas and all the hydration things, just because I'm so aware of how different it is when you've been hydrated to when you're not hydrated. It's a whole different world. But I was the person that never drank any water the whole night long, and I never really drank much alcohol either. Probably a good thing, really. But like I didn't drink any liquids. And I've just now, you're right, Lara, I don't go out. But prior to that, I suddenly become really aware that, God, what are we doing to ourselves? At least give ourselves a chance by putting some fluids in us. And I became very aware of that. And I'm always the person that will go and get the tap water from the bar over. And I get to know the staff, hey, I'm just helping myself to another glass, because that's me.
Yeah.
There's water, girl.
There's water girl. She's back again with those big eyes. I think she might be on something. Do you know what, guys? Never say no to the H2O.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to make friends at the rave. That's why I used to, hey, never say no to the H2O. Worked a treat.
You should get that tattooed on you, actually.
Yeah, I'll get it across my neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is probably my top one. But then within that, I would just caveat. I'm sure people knowing, like listeners probably know, but I would caveat that with like, don't drink too much. Like, not to be like boring about it, but like, don't drink more than like a pint an hour. If you're out raving or whatever, because then it can be dangerous then.
Dangerous on the flip side. Drinking too
Yeah.
much water, you mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But other than that, yeah, I would say that's like the biggest thing, and just everything in moderation, or even like slightly excessive moderation, but like
Moderation is subjective.
yeah, like moderation plus,
XL the moderation.
exactly. And if it feels like it's getting too much and getting on top, then it probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that a good place to get information on drugs is social media now, especially because Vice isn't producing quite as much content as it used to. So there's places like Pill Report, which, full disclosure, I'm part of the team there. And there's also a guy called Simon Doherty who's on TikTok, and also Simon Doherty maybe. And those places for people that are trying to get the most up-to-date information on what's going on in the world of drugs, but also in terms of like safety and stuff like that. I think those places are the best type, and especially in terms of like Pill Report we've done a lot of cocaine posts. So if you kind of like want to know about the effect that cocaine has on your heart or has on your brain, or all sorts of other drugs, for everything from DMT to ketamine to alcohol, those are good kind of resources of information.
Okay, so it's like up to date on like what's happening in that particular, like the scene of that drug, to like give you warnings and stuff about like the quality or bad strains, or like is that what you mean?
Yeah, to give you warnings, but also it's more like relatable information. The idea behind it is that it's written in a way that people that actually take drugs can understand and relate to.
Gotcha. So it's not like Talk to Frank.
It's definitely not like Talk to Frank. It's kind of the opposite of Talk to Frank.
Yeah.
Even though we have like had problems with like Instagram like shutting us down and sort of shadow banning us and stuff like that. But the idea behind it is that you can kind of go there and talk to someone like you would who's a mate of yours, but everything's like super evidence based, even though sometimes it maybe sounds like it isn't.
Okay. All right. That's great advice. Awesome.
Yeah.
So just to end on a lighter note, and because I love to lower the tone sometimes, but have you, David, ever towed anyone?
Is that like having sex with someone but with your toes? Am I reading the room right?
Someone
Yes.
hasn't listened to the episode where I exposed myself. Somehow it came up in very weird conversation between me and Jessie, and we asked our last guest, Mel, and so I just thought it would be fun to ask you too.
Yeah, I'm going to say. Well, I'm not going to say. I just know I haven't.
Yeah. Just because it's not a normal thing to do. Sorry, she's trying to make people be on her side, but it's not a normal thing to do ever at any point in your life, no matter how much you've drunk. When you're a horny teenager with a email address that is, come closer 86. It's just not normal.
Damn it.
Each their own.
But each their own.
Fine. Okay. Just checking. All right. Maybe in the future.
Yeah. Never rule it out.
All right. Well, this was such a fun episode, David. Thank you for being here and sharing your stories with us.
And thank you for quoting us in Mixmag. We really appreciated it. It was a really, really good article. And if anyone hasn't read it yet, we recommend that you do, because it's really interesting read.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you so much for being in it. I really, really, really loved like your input into that. And I actually had quite a lot of people mention how great the sort of you guys quoting was. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I think it was because it was like a human reflection on like sesh life, or the kind of and the good points of it. Because as I said before, people always focus on the negative, I think, rather than on the positives of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and thank you very much for having me on. It's been a delight.
Such a pleasure, David.
Oh, well, thank you for being on. Bye.
Off for a towing.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.